was the spring break of 2022. A few friends of mine and I have been planning this spring break trip since the beginning of the school year, and since this was our last year of college, we wanted to go all out. At first, we couldn't come up with a solid decision on where we should go for spring break, but after careful consideration, we decided to go somewhere else than Miami. Miami is typically the go-to spot for most college students, so this year we wanted to do something different. So for our last trip, we decided to go to the Dominican Republic, specifically to the capital, Santo Domingo. In hindsight, we should have done a little more preparation and research into the area that we were going to. That's not to say that the area is more dangerous than others, but had we been a little less ignorant, I wouldn't be here telling this story. I even remember talking with one of my friends, Aaron. We both had second guesses about the trip for a number of reasons. The two of us were the only ones out of the group that spoke Spanish, and aside from that, we didn't know anything about the place we were going to. But we decided to take our chances because we really wanted to experience something different for our final year of college. Our last day of classes was March 18th, which was a Friday. So in order to make the most out of this spring break, my friends and I flew out to the Dominican Republic the following day. We flew from Richmond, Virginia, so our flight to the Dominican Republic was over 5 hours. But not even 30 minutes after we touched down in the capital, we knew that this trip was going to be great. As soon as you stepped off the plane, you could tell that the scenery was absolutely gorgeous. The women were drop dead beautiful, and overall it seemed like the people there were very inviting. It took us about 20 minutes to get to our suite from the airport. Once we finally arrived to the hotel, we quickly confirmed our reservation and made our way to our room to get settled in. I can't say for sure, but our suite must have been one of the biggest in the hotel since our group consisted of 4 people. Along with Aaron and I came one of our friends, Alec, and Alec's brother, Isaiah. Alec and I were definitely the most reserved ones out of the group. Meanwhile, Aaron and Isaiah immediately wanted to go out and start clubbing. Our friend group has always had that balanced dynamic. Regardless of where we were, Alec and I were usually the more laid back and reserved ones. While in contrast, Aaron and Isaiah were always trying to be the life of the party. By the time we got settled into the hotel, it was still early, somewhere around 3 in the afternoon. So Alec and I tried to convince the other two that we could kill some time on the beach and maybe talk to locals to figure out where we could go for the night. Even though Aaron and Isaiah were itching to go out and start partying, they agreed with us that it was considerably early to go out and start drinking. So the 4 of us got changed into our suits and we made our way to the beach, which was conveniently only half a mile away from the hotel. The beach was packed and it was full of a bunch of other students that were also enjoying their spring break. The music was good, the vibes were great, and the weather couldn't be any better. After lying on the beach for quite some time, I could overhear Isaiah and Aaron talking about something behind me. For about 2 to 3 minutes straight, all I could hear is them talking about a 2-man. And for those of you who don't know, a 2-man is when 2 guys try to go to pick up girls. Once they gathered enough confidence, they made their way over to 2 Dominican-looking girls. I'm Puerto Rican and I have a lot of Dominican people in my family, so I know a native Dominican woman when I see one. Anyway, I could see them talking to them for a long time, and I didn't want to make it obvious that I was watching them, but I couldn't help but watch since the whole interaction was happening right in front of me just a few feet away. I watched as Aaron and Isaiah made their way back over to Alec and I, and right away I knew they got what they wanted because they were smiling and laughing the entire time. They couldn't stop talking about how they got their numbers, and on top of that, they said that the girls can provide them with weed, given that we all like to smoke when we go out. Now that Isaiah and Aaron finally got what they wanted, we decided to pack our things up and make our way back to the hotel. When we got back to the hotel, we didn't waste too much time since we wanted to get out and start partying. Everybody put on the best clothes that they brought with them, and right before we were about to step out the door, Isaiah said that he would meet us at the club once he got what he needed. He wanted to text one of the girls that he met on the beach for weed, but since we left the United States, we didn't have service, so he had to stay in the hotel to use their Wi-Fi. The moment Aaron heard about weed, he decided to stay back too. So at this point, Alec and I decided that we weren't going to wait for them and that we could just meet them at the club. Thankfully, there were a handful of clubs and dance halls within walking distance of the hotel, so we weren't worried in the slightest. Alec and I made our way to this one spot called Templo Lounge. The music was so loud in the venue that you could hear the beat practically a quarter mile away. Once we got inside the venue, we wasted no time. We scouted the area for some girls to talk to, and it didn't take too long for us to lock eyes with some girls that were sitting by the bar. I'll be completely honest, I'm one of those guys who need a few drinks to gather up the courage to talk to girls, and with them sitting by the bar, it made it the perfect time to go up and talk to them. Alec and I both made our way to the bar and started to strike up a conversation with the girls. Even though the girls appeared to be native Dominicans at first, they were actually tourists just like us. So Alec, who doesn't even speak Spanish, didn't need a translator to communicate. Apparently we hit it off so well with the girls that they eventually asked us to a dance, and from that point forward we danced till our clothes were soaking with sweat. At this point in the night I was definitely beyond tipsy, but then when I checked my phone and realized that it was midnight, it hit me. Aaron and Isaiah never made their way to the venue. Suddenly realizing this, I cut the dance short and I told Alec that we have to go back to the hotel to see what was up. We asked the girls for their social media accounts and then we made our way out of the venue and back to the hotel. Once we got back to the hotel, the first thing that we realized was that the entire lobby was empty except for the receptionist. Since we were finally back in the hotel, that meant that I could send them a message via Wi-Fi. I gave it a minute or so, and when neither of them responded in the group chat, we decided to go upstairs. We arrived to the floor of our suite and we made our way to the room. When I took out the key card out of my pocket, I realized that I didn't need it because for some reason the door was already cracked open. In that very moment, I started to get an uncomfortable feeling. There was absolutely no reason for them to leave the door cracked open. I pushed the door open and the two of us made our way into the room and closed the door behind us. The two of us called out their names, and for a few seconds there was just pure silence. But when I really started to hone in, I could hear one of our names being called from one of the rooms. The voice was very low and disgruntled, but I could make it out to be my name. We made our way to the room that the noise was coming from, and when I opened the door I found Aaron and Isaiah both lying on the floor in a near fetal position. When we got closer to them, we saw the severity of their injuries. There wasn't too much bloodshed, but they both definitely had broken bones and swollen eyes. They were severely beaten, but they were able to walk on their own, and they told us that they never left the room after a certain point in fear for their lives. They told us that the girls promised to bring them some weed, but that was just part of their setup. When the two girls made their way to the door, Aaron checked the peephole to see if it was clear, but what he couldn't see were 4 or 5 men waiting at the sides of the door, out of the line of sight. The men then rushed into the suite and beat up Isaiah and Aaron viciously. They took whatever they could find of value, and one of them waved a gun in Aaron and Isaiah's face and told them that if they were to report this to the cops that there would be an issue. Even though none of us wanted to, we had to call the police and file a police report. The fact that our lives were at risk was too much to play with, and we didn't want to take any chances. I can't really get into any of the legal details regarding this situation, but that night we demanded a refund from the hotel, and we took Aaron and Isaiah to get checked out at a hospital. No matter who you are, man or woman, always be safe when you're traveling, and never be too trusting of a person you barely know.